Deep dive into the impacts of President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill on food insecurity here at home. The proposed tax cut and spending legislation would slash millions in funding to programs like SNAP, previously known as food stamps. There are already far too many of our neighbors who struggle to afford putting food on the table, and nonprofits are trying to help out. No Kid Hungry announced today some new grants for 8 school districts and community organizations to provide free meals to kids this summer. And here's why. New numbers show over the past year, 86% of families, especially in rural areas, reported that the cost of food was rising faster than their income. Now, many of the school districts that are getting help from No Kid Hungry will be open daily for grab-and-go lunches, some also handing out free breakfast. We're going to get a list of the locations and times up on our website, so check that out. We have team coverage on all of this tonight. Karen Kafa updates us on the overall status of the Big Beautiful Bill from Washington. But first, 7 News' Krista Moran shows us why there's real concern that the plan would worsen Western New York's food insecurity crisis.
Feed More Western New York serves more than 165,000 people, and that need is only growing.
We've seen that so far beginning this year as well. More people coming to partner agencies looking for temporary assistance in terms of having enough food.
Colin Bishop says demand is up 16% since last year and 46% over the last 3 years.
That's really large growth for any kind of work. It's really sad when it's nutrition relief that you think about. Then that number of people in our community are in need of food assistance regularly, and that it's not going down.
Now the Big Beautiful Bill in Washington could make that need even greater. It would require states to cover a bigger share of the cost of SNAP, which is currently fully funded by the federal government. In a briefing with the state's Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, Bishop says the estimates were staggering, with the House bill projected to cost New York State $1.9 billion to cover SNAP benefits. The Senate version more than $2 billion.
I think it's not sustainable. I don't think those are prices that the state of New York could pick up.
That briefing, Bishop says, also outlined the impact to our area.
In Western New York, they estimate that it would be over 22,000 people who would have reduced or lose benefits entirely from SNAP, and that those people would then need additional assistance, primarily from Feed More Western New York and our partner agencies.
And Bishop says Feed More is already stretched thin.
Adding 22,000 people who have lost or have reduced SNAP benefits is really going to push us to an even larger number.
The bill would also expand work requirements, raising the age limit to 64 and applying time limits to households with children. Commissioner Barbara Gwynn with OTDA spoke about those changes last week on Voices.
In addition, the House and Senate are also now for the first time would impose these significant time limits on households that include children, while at the same time doing nothing to provide additional supports. There's nothing in the bill that provides for any of that.
And Feed More is encouraging people to reach out to federal lawmakers, saying there's still time to fight these changes. Bishop says they are speaking with lawmakers and raising awareness as much as they can. But Michael, Republicans like local Congressman Nick Langworthy say the SNAP cuts are only about waste, fraud, and abuse, and ensuring people who truly need the assistance are getting it.
All right, Kristen Moran reporting tonight. Kristen, thank you. And let's continue our team coverage on this now with Karen Kafa, who is in D.C. following the latest on the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. So, Karen, the clock is ticking, right? The goal here still to get this done by July 4th. Republicans trying to rally support around that today. Polls show the American people overall aren't really sold. Where do things stand right now?
Well, where things stand is that Republican leadership in both chambers, Michael, still insists that they can get this bill across the finish line by July 4th. But over on the Senate side, where they are trying to write this bill so they can pass it with a simple majority rather than that 60 vote threshold, they were dealt a setback today, right? There's the Senate parliamentarian who acts as a referee to make sure that the legislation is in bounds for passing it under those guidelines for something related to the federal budget. And there were a number of provisions that the parliamentarian has said that Republicans cannot include in this bill. Among them, the provider tax as it pertains to Medicaid. Now, that actually could work to Republicans' favor if they don't include it, because that's a sticky sticking point for a number of centrist Republicans who are concerned about what cuts to Medicaid could mean for rural hospitals and other health care provisions in their states. On the other side of that, though, you have the fiscal conservatives who say that this bill is not doing enough to curb the federal deficit. So right now there's the intra-party squabbles, Michael, and there's the bigger picture of Senate Republican leadership looking like they may have to rework this bill.
And Karen, we talked a moment ago about the opposition based on the SNAP cuts. You mentioned Medicaid there, another big sticking point. I mean, are you sensing optimism on Capitol Hill that this can get done in time?
You know, you never can tell. And let's remember that this July 4th deadline for this legislation going to President Trump's desk is an arbitrary deadline. The president wants to see this bill signed by July 4th, but there's really nothing stopping Republicans from going back and hashing through some of these provisions to make sure that members of their caucus are more comfortable with them. You're never going to get complete agreement from the entire Republican caucus, and Democrats have said Republicans do have to pass this piece of legislation on their own, but they do have a little bit more time. They don't necessarily have to pass this by July 4th, but they said they want to meet the president's expectation. They expect that they'll work through the weekend on it if they need to. But in terms of passing a piece of legislation that includes most of President Trump's domestic policies, that likely could happen. But as for everything that everybody wants in this bill, remember, Michael, it still has to go back to the House after the Senate, after they make those changes. So that July 4 deadline looking pretty tight right now.
Yeah, they certainly want to get it done before the debt ceiling deadline comes later on. Karen Kaifa reporting for us tonight in Washington, D.C. Karen, thank you.
You bet.